Occurred earlier this month. As you know, on the evening of Tuesday, August 10th, a long-lasting line of severe thunderstorms hit southeastern Wisconsin with wind gusts of topping 60 miles per hour. The high wind gusts combined with wet soils likely led to a high volume of the tree damage that we saw in southeastern Wisconsin and throughout the city of Milwaukee. These severe winds were also longer lasting than other thunderstorms, where peak gusts typically would last for only a few seconds. These winds lasted for up to 5 to 20 minutes in some cases. The storm left tens of thousands without power and resulted in hundreds of downed trees with property damage throughout the city, and you can see some of that along this block as we stand here today. Immediately, multiple divisions within DPW responded to this extreme weather event in the overnight hours and around the clock in the days that followed. By noon the following day, the City of Milwaukee Unified Call Center received nearly 1,000 reports of downed trees from the public. The majority of these reports were of critical nature, which included downed trees and branches blocking travel lanes, falling on buildings and homes and cars. In the days that followed, this number would increase to nearly 3,400 calls, and again, the majority of these being high priority emergency work. And you'll hear more about that from the others that'll come up and speak a little bit. But I have to say, the one thing that, when we have these kinds of events, and I feel this way on a daily basis, I feel very fortunate to lead an organization in DPW full of so many dedicated employees and that perform, the essential functions, the essential services on a daily basis, but also rise to the challenge that we have when we have to face these critical responses from storms, winter storms, summer storms alike, as we experienced here on August 10th. Our workers' strong coordination ensured we had the most effective response possible. Despite the additional hazards from power outages, power lines being down, they all add additional challenges to the work that we have to do in responding to these things. So now I'd like to turn it over to our city engineer, Gerald Kruschke, to discuss some of the efforts that Infrastructure Services has been dealing with.
Good morning. My name is Gerald Kruschke, city engineer. During the storms, we had 120 signalized intersections that lost power. We had another 17 signalized intersections that sustained damage. Our electrical crews worked overnight, day and night over the past couple of weeks. I'm happy to say at this point, every signalized intersection is up and running and functioning properly. In addition, our street lighting facilities had some damage. We had 19 overhead power lines down, 34 broken arms and fixtures, 12 poles, and 3 substations sustained water. We had over 300 work orders come in during this time. At this point, we have at least 70% of those work orders complete. We are still working around the clock to deal with a lot of these issues, so be patient. I know there's some streetlight poles that are down. You'll see them in some neighborhoods, but we're addressing those issues currently. Finally, we're working with our partners in the Forestry Department to address issues like you see behind me with our street maintenance crews to repair damaged sidewalk from trees that have been uprooted. So not much damage here. I'm going to pass it over to Danielle Rodriguez, our Director of Operations, and she can talk about our forestry and sanitation, which is the true people you see as part of these operations.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks. Danielle Rodriguez, DPW Director of Operations. The first thing I want to do is just extend a very large thank you to our emergency management coordination system that included the Milwaukee County Sheriff's County Emergency Management System, County Parks, County DOT, our own Milwaukee Police Department and Fire Department. As you can imagine, a storm this large and with this heavy of a winds, there was definitely a lot of coordination that happened behind the scenes. But also our true stars of this storm are our forestry arborists, as well as our sanitation and fleet departments that really came together and tackled this storm and the efforts to clean up. So currently, over the last 2 weeks, we've been knee-deep and very diligent in our cleanup efforts. We have well over 1,600 requests right now for brush collection in our system, of which about 61% are completed. We do continue to work extended hours to get towards collecting all of that brush. So if residents do still have brush remaining, we ask that they go ahead and call 286 City, which is 286-2489, and put in a request for pickup. Brush collection can also be done at normal garbage collection points, and crews will come by and pick those up. Also, one thing, online you can also submit a request at milwaukee.gov/click for action. As you can imagine, our crews in forestry have been working the hardest lately, and the bulk of that work is being done by our arborists. And now I'm going to turn it over to Randy Kraus, who is our Forestry Services Manager. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. Good morning. Randy Kraus, Forestry Services Manager. The August 10th storm was a very damaging storm. With the high winds, it was really unprecedented regarding damage to trees and property. At this point, we have lost 530 mature street trees and countless private trees, if you can imagine. Thousands of trees were also damaged during this storm. And then also, in addition to that, many buildings and cars incurred damage. As of August 24th, 2 weeks after the storm, we received well over 3,000 calls for emergency tree service. 65% of those were high priority emergency calls. The Forestry Division completed nearly 2,000 work orders up to this point to remove fallen trees and branches. Many of these fallen trees and branches were on houses, cars, or blocking public right-of-way. Most of this emergency work has been completed at this point, and we have now moved into a cleanup operation, taking care of pending work orders, and then we are also sweeping through neighborhoods that were hardest hit by the storm, block by block, street by street, and cleaning up fallen branches and picking up brush piles. 50% of that work has been completed so far, but we expect another week or two of cleaning up even that damage. But I can assure you our crews are hard at work with that. Regarding our crews, I really want to give a shout out to our forestry crews, our professional arborists, some of them you see behind us, that worked very hard on taking care of that emergency work. The professionalism they shown while performing that work was outstanding. Most of that emergency work was done within a week's time as they worked around the clock. So I want to give a big shout out to our forestry crews. And I also want to give a shout out to our sanitation crews and our fleets department for also assisting us in cleaning up the damage. A big thanks to all the residents. I appreciate your patience as we work through this process, but I can assure you we will get things cleaned up. If you called in tree damage to DPW, be sure that we received your call and we will follow up. If you notice any hazardous branches hanging in any street trees, please call 286 City, so that's 286-2489 to report, and we will follow up. Thank you.
Well, as you know, certainly as the department recognizes the impact that this storm had on the public on the city as a whole, and you know, we feel we had a very appropriate response. We've been working around the clock in many cases after the days of that storm, and again, you know, as others have indicated, it was an all hands on deck type of a storm. I mean, we had our forestry staff, our sanitation staff, our fleet staff, electrical services staff, as well as you know, people from other parts of our department working on the impacts of this storm. So much appreciation goes out to the full department. And I think that, while there will be ongoing efforts in the coming weeks for cleanup, at least the bulk of those priority issues have been taken care of. But for the public standpoint, if you still see something that remains out in front of your properties, it's not that it's been forgotten. Either one, report it to make sure that we're aware of it, but two, know that we will be responding, and it's an ongoing effort at this time as well. So, any questions? All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. You carry it.